Today, Bungie announced the details of the Titan changes they teased in the weekly update yesterday. As everyone on the planet everywhere expected, they included a nerf to Sunbreakers. The nice surprise though was that there's buffs to the overall class and buffs for strikers and defenders. So Bungie are going to show Titans some mercy by increasing their melee range by 12.5%. This obviously won't compete with Warlock or Hunter throwing knife melee range, but it's a welcome change. And the second overall buff to the class is that the Catapult perk in the jump tree is getting a 5% increase to its initial velocity. So Sunbreakers. In general, the nerfs are being done so that other classes have at least a snowball's chance in hell of standing against a Sunbreaker. At the moment, the only answer when you hear that clang is to run in the opposite direction. It's almost impossible to take down a Sunbreaker while it's in Hammer of Soul. After the update next week, this hopefully won't be the case as the damage resistance while in Super is being reduced by roughly 9%. We'll have to wait and see what this means in practice, but I'm willing to bet it means other high-powered attacks should now be able to one-shot us, as they should. Things like Golden Gun and a sniper shot to the head should be able to bring us down in one hit. I feel a little bit dirty about the number of Golden Guns or rockets I've turned to the face and then immediately regen my health after killing the shooter. Which brings us to the Cauterize perk. It's also getting a nerf in the form of a cooldown. At the moment, even if the enemy team gangs up on a Sunbreaker Titan, the 0-second cooldown on the health regen means that a Sunbreaker Titan in Hammer of Soul can fairly easily take down a group of 2 or 3 opponents team-shotting them. Now we'll have to wait 3 seconds in between health regen, and 3 seconds is a long time when you're getting fired on. The offensive capability of Sunbreakers is also being tuned down a bit, with nerfs to the Forge Master and Flameseeker perks, meaning the blast radius and tracking effectiveness of hammers will be reduced. We'll have to be a bit more considered and skillful in our hammer aiming, rather than just spamming and wiping out a team like we can now. Finally, the Fleet Fire and Firekeeping perks are both actually getting buffed slightly to increase our agility and recovery base stats respectively. This should make perk choices a little more difficult. These changes will hopefully mean you're not gimping yourself by taking these perks instead of say Flameseeker or Cauterize, although if I'm honest, I don't think it'll be enough. Striker Titans are getting the most love in this update. The charged melee is getting an 8% damage increase and each of the melee perks is getting a buff. The Overload perk will charge melee 50% faster, Discharge will have its damage boosted by almost 8%, and its AoE changed to a sphere, so it can hit targets on a different vertical plane to you. And finally, the bonus super energy you get from Amplify will be increased by 30%. All of these seem to be trying to align to the melee fantasy of the Striker Titan subclass. Some of the Striker passive perks are getting buffed as well. Headstrong will increase your base sprint speed, and the cooldown on the health regen for Transfusion will be reduced to 3 seconds. Unstoppable will give more of a base armor increase, as well as more damage resistance while using Fist of Havoc. And finally, the shield granted by Juggernaut will work when airborne and get a bonus 14.3% health. Last but not least, we have the Defenders. They obviously benefit from the overall class change, but have the fewest specific changes. The only change being that Ward of Dawn will now instantly recharge your grenade and melee abilities. So that's all the changes coming for Titans next week. Overall, I think they're positive, but of course it's impossible to know how they'll turn out until we start playing with them and get a sense of how they feel. I hope to God that Sunbreakers still feel super powerful, as that's kind of the fantasy behind them. But at the same time, I want to feel like if I play well on a different class, I have a chance of countering them other than simply trying to outrun them. Without these changes, I think we have a similar issue as we did in Year 1 with Yellowhorn. It was a completely overpowered weapon to the point that if you were using it, at least in PvE, you were gimping yourself in many ways. And for me personally, it felt like that with Sunbreaker as well. While I had far too much fun wrecking face in PvP with my Sunbreaker, and I probably will continue to do so, I felt like if I wanted to change things up and run as a striker or defender, I was deliberately setting myself up to have a bad time. So what do you guys think? Are you looking forward to these changes? Personally, I'd like to see a similar review done for the other classes as well. While the situation certainly isn't as dire, I think after more than a year of play with the vanilla subclasses, it might be time for them to see some love. Let me know in the comments below how you feel about the changes coming next week and what you do for the remaining classes. Cheers guys.